So I watch a lot of YouTube videos, woodworking, movies, sketches, comedy. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube, and the production value is only getting better. Like, it's essentially like watching a TV show anymore. And obviously YouTube Red exists, and you can watch movies and TV shows on there all you want. But before a lot of the videos, there are ads now, and it used to be that there were no ads. They were just off to the side. You click on it if you want to. And then it graduated to there being ads that you could skip after 5 seconds, which, that was nice, but then sometimes you get caught up in the ad, which I guess is the goal of the advertiser. And then, now it's to the point where it's like, oh, video will play after ad. All right, well, it's a 12-second or 14-second ad, and it's not that bad to sit and wait for, but it's also not the most convenient thing when you're hoping to watch your video that you selected. But I want to talk about one ad in particular. It's for an app/website/ add-on tool called Grammarly. Sorry for the arm in the way. I was adjusting the air conditioning vent. It's called Grammarly. And maybe some of you use it or have at least heard of it, but essentially what it is an autocorrect add-on that as you're typing something, it will catch spelling and grammar mistakes and change them for you. Which is cool if you're like a student in the primary level who's just learning how to write. That's fine. But the first shot of this ad is a lady sitting on her living room sofa saying, if you write anything on your computer, you need Grammarly. And then it goes on and on and on with other people talking about how they use Grammarly in their professional setting. Like, oh, it catches all those silly little mistakes. Or it's great for a resume when you don't want to look like a fool. Like, really? Is that what we have come to as adults in this world? Is we can't proofread our own stuff? Like, what are you teaching my students at that point? Like, oh, I don't need to learn language arts and grammar rules because there are apps that'll fix everything for me. Like, yeah, I get that Microsoft Word has had spell check for years, but even that, like, you have to go back through and select the actual thing you wanted to say to make it fix. But so that left you some sort of accountability on your end, like, oh, maybe that isn't the version I wanted to use, or maybe that's the word I wanted to use. But Grammarly even goes a step further to, like, give you an in-app thesaurus that's like, oh, do you want to say stuff, or do you want to say items? Or do you want to say cool, or do you want to say extraordinary? Like, build your vocabulary, folks. Don't allow an electronic tool to tell you how to speak and how to come across as a professional. I mean, then you're just fooling yourself. Like, okay, you turn in that resume that Grammarly corrected for you. Great. You get the job. Your boss wants a memo on his desk the next day, and you make all the mistakes that Grammarly didn't check for you. You look like a fool just as much, or tenfold, because you're in the position now, and he thinks you're a genius, but really, the computer's doing all the work for you. And maybe I'm just old-fashioned. Maybe I'm just stuck in a world where I get that there are technological advances, but maybe I just don't want to be a part of them. There's a lot of technology that's really, really cool. That makes your lives easier, that makes them better, that doesn't affect your mental capacity, though. Like, I'd like to stay on the same topic here, but I feel like this is relatable. Right as soon as I stopped recording the video this morning, I passed a sign. It was a yellow road sign, the yellow diamond, that said, or it had a picture of a car with swervy lines behind it, which means, potential slip hazard. And then it said, when wet, below it. Duh. Water makes things slippery. And it was meant to be like this type of concrete that's specifically under this bridge that hasn't been updated for a while, which was in relation to this morning's video. It was talking about how underneath the bridge gets slippery when it gets wet. Are we really that dull as human beings that when the road is wet, we're not more cautious? I'm not saying slow down to 40 miles an hour on the interstate when it's drizzling outside, but good golly, if it's pouring down rain and you can't see 20 feet in front of you, don't go flying at 80 miles an hour trying to pass people left and right and swerve in and out of traffic. Come on, use some common sense. And so the same thing kind of applies with Grammarly and any other app of that. I'm calling them out, and that's not fair to them because there are other apps out there that do the same thing. Autocorrect on your phone does the same thing, but I find that it makes more mistakes than it saves. I think autocorrect is like coded to assume that you're making mistakes. So when somebody like me is actually trying to write complete sentences with punctuation and capital letters in their text message, it's just goofing me up and making me look worse than, the average Joe who is actually making mistakes and autocorrect is trying to help them. But the same thing applies to street signs. Like, there are so many more and more street signs. There's a curve on my way home on the interstate where they've installed the yellow, like, rectangular signs with the black arrows, like, pointing that the road curves. That road has curved for how long? And by the way, those signs were not there last school year. Like, they were installed over the summer. The road didn't change. It's not like the curve was added over the summer. Hasn't been added in for the last 20, 30 years since that interstate has been put in. But for some reason now, we have to install these signs to remind people to turn their wheel. Probably because they're too busy trying to type something on their phone that Grammarly's trying to fix for them. It just drives me nuts that we're making this world so much more convenient for idiots. I'm sorry, that was rude, but it's true. And there's these giant white lines, white arrows painted on the exit ramps pointing the right direction to drive. And like giant red reflectors and wrong way signs. Like, oh my goodness gracious, are you so lost that you can't figure out which way to drive on the road or how to spell the word the correctly or use the right version of there or your? And the cars that auto park themselves now. Like, yeah, when I was a kid, I thought it would be the coolest thing to be in an automatic car where you could just sit back and let the car take you places. But that was before I was able to drive myself. Now I can take myself places. I don't need a car to do it for me. And if I'm going so far to a place where I need to like stop and take a nap, I don't need the car to keep going. I'll either switch drivers with the person that's with me, or I'll stop and take a nap. I'm driving past those yellow signs with the black arrows on them right now, so it's just reminding me even more how dumb it is that they exist. So I don't know why this world is becoming, or maybe not this world, it's not fair to say the world, because there are other countries in the world, on the planet, that have people that have figured out how to live life safely and with common sense. But for whatever reason, in my small little corner of the world, it's becoming increasingly clear that it's becoming more convenient for ignorant people to succeed. Not to mention the welfare and the food stamps and things that go misused every single day. Don't get me wrong, people use these things correctly too. Like if you're a junior high or senior high English teacher and you want to introduce your students to Grammarly and say, hey, this is a way to check your writing, but also pay attention because eventually this is a tool that you should not need anymore. We should not be full-grown adults entering the business world needing a computer to check our work. That should be something that you're able to do on your own. And so it just infuriates me as a teacher that the world is becoming increasingly easier to live in for people who want to be lazy. That's what it amounts to. Is people want to be lazy, and the world, society is making it easier for them to be that way. It makes my job harder. Making the world easier to live in makes my job harder. How is that helpful? I don't know. I'll see you in the morning.